My name is Kiva Duckworth Moulton. I was born in 1968, and I moved to Dixon and before I even turned 1 year old with my family. One of my first memories is a birthday party that was thrown for me, and it was at when we lived at Nuco Ranch in Embudo, so I must have been turning 4 or 5. And I remember my friend Adam Crawford handing me a beautifully wrapped present in a decorative paper towel. The gift was, of course, a book. His parents are Stan and Rosemary Crawford, and they're both writers and probably set me on my life of loving to read. Some of the things that I remember from growing up here were the places that my parents lived. My father and my stepmother owned La Bolsa Ranch, which was 28 acres of a farm, beautiful orchards and gardens tucked between the sandhill of the Barranca Blanca mountain, which we call, and the Rio Grande. Fruit trees and lots of outbuildings and people living there. It wasn't really a commune, but it was more of lots of different buildings and people coming and going. And so I spent years there in with lots of different people. I can remember going from our house to a little round building in the orchard and visiting Tato, a guy from Colombia with dark curly hair and shoes made out of tire treads. And I can remember visiting Kenny and Patricia and seeing if they had any snacks for me. And I can remember climbing the trees and going to the river, even going to the neighbor's house and visiting their little dog, and just having that freedom and security of just walking around and feeling good about that. My mom lived in a couple of different places. One was a little cabin that the community built for her in a day, is the story, after my parents split up, and they built this little cabin, and it was in El Bosque along the river up near the ditch, and so we played along that ditch a lot. Another place was up in Cuestecitas at my stepfather's house, and his place is a single property in probably hundreds of acres of nothing, of BLM wildland. And so, I mean, our years there were playing in the waterfall and hiking up the arroyos and sliding down sand mountains and spending all day outside and in the wilds and just feeling really great about that, not having any worries. I guess the feeling I get from that time is a feeling of safety, of being okay. I wasn't instructed to be afraid. I wasn't taught to fear those people on the farm, whether they were Vietnam vets returning or draft dodgers or people from other countries. We had a couple of women from England who led us all in song. I wasn't taught to be afraid of nature, so snakes and coyotes up the arroyo, or worrying about going down to the river. In fact, the requirement was if you could prove that you could swim from bank to bank in the river, then you were allowed to go down there. And so I often did with my siblings. I wasn't afraid of being out there in the middle of nowhere. It was a good, safe, fun feeling. Now, I did go to the elementary school, and I did feel a little different there. There was only a few of the hippie kids in mostly Hispanic community. And so I do remember noticing the difference in our lifestyles. A couple of times that we were invited to houses for birthday parties or something, I remember feeling quite jealous and thinking that we were the poor ones and they were the rich ones, clearly because they had wall-to-wall carpeting and color TV and cars that started and paneling and clean houses, and we would leave there and go back to our house that had no running water, no electricity, or food kept in the coolers and cars that were questionable. But in each of those places also, I remember having some kind of magical places for the imagination. My best friend, Marin, lived up the first arroyo at the end of the road their property was, and it also butted up against probably hundreds of acres of nothing, of BLM land. And we would explore, and we had a special place we called the Cottonwoods, and it was a stand of trees, and it was in the arroyo, so had a sandy floor, and so and they had put up a hammock, and so for us that was, it could be a beach, or we played spies. We spent a lot of time imagining that we were the Charlie's Angels. It was my sister Marin and I, and so of course the three of us were the three Charlie's Angels, and we'd pretend to put on makeup with the plastic makeup toys we bought at Zeller's store. And up at Lem's, up in Cuestecitas, we also had the Cottonwoods, we called it. And there we created kind of a world that we imagined was out there. And so it was everything we didn't have. So we built a town in the Cottonwoods. And it had streets and a bank and a bowling alley and a sheriff and a mayor, and we got married and all the things that were unusual to us. So it was things we didn't have, but in each of those places was the magic of it, and kind of in my reflection, realizing that freedom and that safety and that just feeling secure in where I was has continued through my life, and understanding that you don't need things and you don't need extra stuff to be happy. You can make do with what you have and reuse and reduce and recycle and all of that. And just like that birthday present wrapped in a paper towel where, it was practical and functional and beautifully done. Even today, when we have family birthday parties or gatherings, you might find a birthday card that instead of being written on it is actually inside is a sticky note with the salutation and the signature, so you can reuse that very clever card again.